Hello and good evening, JC here from We Are Arsenal. I hope everyone is well. I have an extra spicy show for you guys tonight, joined by some even specialer guests around me. And what we'll be doing today is analysing 5 forwards that Arsenal may or may not go for in the January transfer window. 3 guests joining me to help analyse these players. Starting with Neil. How are we doing, my friend?
I am good. I'm very, very happy to be among these esteemed gentlemen. Very happy to be here, Jake. Really happy.
Well, thank you very much for putting some time aside once again, one of the regulars on the show. But our next 2 guests are making their debuts, and the link-ups have taken way too long. And we've got Canners. How are we doing, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you, as I said, for the call out, making my debut here. Hyped up for this. Respect.
Good man, thank you. Appreciate you making some time. And then last but by no means least, we've got Scott from quite literally the other side of the planet joining us as well. Early in the morning, 8 o'clock, dedication to the Arsenal calls. How are we doing, my friend?
Doing well, thanks for having me on. It's nice to finally link up with some excellent panellists to talk some exciting stuff. Transfers.
Brilliant. Well, look, I've got everyone's details down below. Each of our great guests today have their own YouTube channels and Twitter pages. So go and follow them on Twitter, subscribe to their YouTube channels. And at the end of today's show, they can plug their socials as they see fit. So up next, we are going to jump into the show where I said we will be analysing 5 forwards. Drop a like and subscribe if you're new around here. What I'd like for you guys to do, who have joined the chat, thank you very much, is drop in who you would prefer from the following 5 forwards, and then I'm going to ask my guests and see if they change their minds by the end of the show based on the stats that we go through and crunch together. So the 5 strikers that we'll be analysing today are En-Nesyri of Sevilla, Dominic Calvert-Lewin of Everton, Vlahović of Fiorentina, Jonathan David of Lille, and finally Alexander Isak of Real Sociedad. So Neil, before we get into the stats, they may or may not change your mind. From those 5, if you could buy one of those strikers right now, regardless of price, who would it be?
I'll go for Calvert-Lewin, man. Premier League proven, bro.
Good man.
No adjustments
Canners
needed.
What about yourself, Canners? Who would you go for?
I'm Vlahović all day, man. For me, he just ticks all the boxes. For physicality, skill, and a wonder of a left foot.
He is attracting a lot of attention for all of the right reasons at the moment. So let's see what his numbers say in just a moment. And finally, Scott, who would you pick from the list mentioned?
I'm sitting on the fence a little bit. Sorry, boys. I know the other 2 panellists were good at making their calls. I'm probably leaning more towards David at this point. Only because I won't get too far into it, but I feel like I don't think he's the best striker in the group, but I think he's the best fit for our system.
He definitely has his positives, and he's one of my favourites as well. As Keith has just mentioned in the chat, me and Keith often speak about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's got that Premier League pedigree. He's got the experience already, so he may not necessarily take too long to adjust to the Premier League. But at the end of the day, if you've got the quality, you'll adjust regardless. As Fox says here, Vlahović, who no doubt wherever he ends up, whether it's Arsenal or another elite club, Can has mentioned it as well, I'm sure he'll do a very, very good job. I think he's just beaten, actually, the all-time goal-scoring record for most goals in a calendar year in the Serie A. And yes. Ronaldo played there, last couple of seasons. So, that is what it is. So are you boys ready to jump into the first pieces of information?
Let's go.
We'll start off nice and easy. I won't scare you off right away. So on screen at the moment, just so that we can maybe kind of understand the type of profile that Arteta and Edu are maybe targeting, whether it be January, hopefully, maybe it gets pushed back to the summer. We'll have to wait and see. We've got a couple of players here who are 24. The rest are in their younger years. Maybe they might stump the growth of someone like Balogun if he's good enough to break into the Arsenal team. That's yet to be seen. Price tags at the bottom are questionable. That's based off of a bunch of research I've done. Some things to take into consideration here is Isak, for example, does have a release clause of 77 million. So if we put that money on the table, we can talk to him. Vlahović, he is available at the end of the season, pre-contract potentially in January. But if we want to kind of get away our rivals, we'll have to cough up potentially 50 to 80 million pounds from what his agents have said. So coming to you first, Neil, what do you make of what you can see on screen? Is there anything there in terms of positives? I know there's not much to go on at this point, but in terms of positives, whether it be contract length, maybe the type of striker, the age, what are you looking for here?
I'm looking for a right-footed edging towards their prime, and that's Dominic. That's Dominic. That DCL. You know, he's right there. Price is within, I think, our range as well. I can't see us going and splashing 80 million or 77 million for a striker. We've done quite a bit of that, and we spent quite a bit of that in the summer window. So I could really see some strong edgings towards having Calvert-Lewin coming to Arsenal. His height as well. He's a target man, something that we need as well. Just wanted to stick those 2 points in as well. Thank you.
And just a sort of secondary question to you there, because you focused on Dominic Calvert-Lewin in your first two answers. If just for whatever reason he wasn't available and you had to pick one of the other four, who would you go for?
Isak. I literally for the past 2 days been looking at this guy, looking at highlights. You know, I spent some time because I don't watch La Liga. I'm gonna be honest. So anybody that we're linked with, I'm gonna just resort to YouTube and just look them up. But he's quite a player, and he has hints of Nicolas Pepe in his style.
Okay.
But he seems to be more of a workhorse than Pepe is. You know, Pepe has that type of very relaxed, you know, just chill, which probably doesn't go down well with Arteta. And let's not get into all that Arteta-Pepe relationship. But I think it would have to be Isak.
Okay. And coming to you next, Scott. Again, same question that I put to Neil just a moment ago. Not much information to go on just yet. We've got age profiles, height, value, contracts, that kind of thing. What do you make from the information in terms of who we should be targeting at this point here?
Look, for me, quite simply, they're all at a good age. They're all young. They're all ready to make their mark. Sorry, I've got my little guy at the door looking for me.
No, that's okay.
Morning streams. They're all at a good age that fits the profile of our squad. I do like that David uses both feet. To me, that makes him a good catch. But the prices, I don't know. What concerns me with Vlahović is his desire to join. I don't actually know if he wants to join Arsenal. If you don't want to be part of this team and you're not sold on the project, that concerns me already. With Calvert-Lewin talking generally, I do worry a little bit about his injuries. And his longevity. Yes. We look at someone like Lacazette, who to me is very underrated, and I actually wouldn't have a problem with keeping him for another season. But we look at someone like Latte, he's very rarely out injured. He'll play consistently, and what I think we benefited from this season as a whole is consistency. Our lineup last season was chopping and changing every week, whereas now we've had the same defensive line, we've had the same keeper. Since Lacazette's come up front, we've had that same front three and the same mid. And it's no surprise that we're playing really well, because to me, football's a game of chemistry. If you've worked together and you've played together, you know what the other person's most likely to do. So, I worry about Calvert-Lewin's injuries, but they're all at a good age. They're all of the right profile. And I wouldn't be too worried about, Balogun or even Eddie at this point and impeding their development, because they've been in the system long enough and they need to start showing Arteta that they can break into the team. If they're not playing, it's because Arteta doesn't think they're ready. And we've seen Saka and Smith Rowe step up. So I wouldn't not sign one of these guys because I'm thinking about Balogun.
Yes, it's a good point. And the other thing that we need to take into consideration whilst you do mention age is that when we look at, well, Emery, even Wenger, when Aubameyang came in, and now it's always been Aubameyang and Lacazette. It creates good competition. So even if we did sign someone at a slightly younger age, them two sort of competing against each other week in, week out for that starting spot up top could be a good thing potentially. And you do make a good point about Dominic Calvert-Lewin's injury record. Of late, it's not been the greatest. Hopefully, maybe he can put that behind him. I'm hoping that Arteta and the lads have done their research. But coming to you next, Canners. Same question to yourself, my friend. Not much information just yet.
Yeah, I'm still obviously right behind Vlahović for me is Isak, because I was watching him an immense amount during the Euros, and his feet, he's got incredible feet for a big lad.
Yes,
he's rangy. His feet, he's good at holding up the ball, and I think he'll be able to do what Lacazette's doing, and probably a little bit more. I wouldn't, with Isak's stats, I wouldn't kind of, read too much into that. But for me, I know with Vlahović and his desire to come, you just got to remember that this is all paper talk about him not wanting to talk to us, etc. So we don't even know exactly what he's saying behind the scenes. He's got to come out in the press and say, you know what, I want to stay with the team. I want to, want them to get into Europe. We've not been in Europe for a long time. He's saying the right things. He cannot come out and say, I want to leave, or I want to go here, or I want to go there. So I would kind of temper that. Secretly, he might be saying, he might have an Arsenal top already. You never know. But what with Vlahović, for me, he has everything. The physicality of, and you know what? The spine of our team would just be so immense if we had him there. With what he can do with causing trouble, with defensives, it would just be because the running he does with the ball, as well as off it, you can see he works hard, he battles hard, he's physically strong, and I just think he's one of those players that we need that can do everything, because we need a player with the system that we do play that can hold up the ball like Lacazette. Yes. And that's why what's happening now with Lacazette, because it's totally different to how Aubameyang plays. Aubameyang plays with his, he wants to play off the last man, etc., etc. But Lacazette wants to front you up. Vlahović will do the same thing. Then, boom, look, spin to get him behind, and he will physically rough up the defense.
Oh yeah,
the only person I would say who would probably he would have a great battle with would be Van Dijk. Everyone else, I would bet Vlahović would give him a right good seeing to. I don't know, man. I don't think, apart from Haaland and Mbappe, I'm not sure if there's a better striker right now.
No, I don't think there is. I honestly, I think, just before we came on stream, we were talking that he's broken the record in Serie A for most goals scored in a calendar year ever since records began.
And it's ridiculous. His last 2 seasons, his numbers. Listen, I know the Italian league is not the strongest. However, he's still he's not in the greatest team. He's not in Juve or Inter. He's doing this at Fiorentina, who are mid-table, mid to upper, probably top 6, top 7 team, and he's banging in goals left, right, and centre.
Yeah, there's
big positives.
They're 7th in the league right now.
There you go. Could you imagine him at Juve? He'll be, I don't know, especially in that league.
Like you said, if that environment around him changes to a better environment, not in terms of whether it's toxic, in terms of the players around him and their quality, if you stuck him in a Man City or whatever, the amount of goals he could score would be scary to think about. Well, look, you mentioned there, Canners, a really, really good point about movement and about where players find themselves on the pitch and how it would suit our system. And one thing that might change our minds is their heat maps for the current league campaigns for the respected leagues that all of these players play in on a weekly basis. En-Nesyri hasn't played too many games this season. Neither has DCL. The other three have, and their heat maps are very, very busy, as you can see here. And one thing that I do like about the last three, and I'll ask you a lot for your opinions in just a moment, is that it's not all concentrated in that final third. As you mentioned a moment ago, Canners, Lacazette likes to drop deep. He likes to link up that play between midfield and allow space for people like Emil Smith-Rowe, Martinelli or Saka get in behind. And those last three heat maps there show me that they could potentially fulfill that similar type of role that Lacazette is doing right here, right now. I'm not saying that DCL couldn't do that, but with him, for example, whilst I like him a lot, I get the feeling he's the sort of guy that sort of sits on the last man, wins a lot of headers, that type of player. So I'm going to come straight back to you on this one, Canners. From these heat maps, because Vlahović, funnily enough, has probably the busiest of the bunch. So what do you take from the information on screen?
No, you pretty much called it. I mean, Vlahovic's heat map, it just shows that his work rate is second to none, as you can see there. You could probably look at David. He is himself. He does drop very deep as well. But also as well with Vlahović, his help at defensive corners is going to be a massive plus considering his height as well. He's 190. So that's going to be I'm looking at that and the heat map. That's crazy, especially with Vlahović. I mean, it just shows you the work rate really, especially with the last three. I'm looking at is David. I've not really seen too much of him, but is he Cazorla two-footed?
So he's two-footed, and he can, from what I understand, he can play as a cam. He can play as a striker in a single system. Yep. He can play as a second striker in a double up top. So he can offer a variety of different roles, which is really, really good considering some of the systems Arsenal have played over the last few years, although Arteta has been quite consistent.
I mean, because that's one of the things, actually, you can look at him here, and you can see that with him dropping so deep, he's very comfortable on the ball. So that's obviously something, as I think Scott was referring to, in terms of him being, a fit for Arteta's system. That could well be. I'm still sold on Vlahović at the point.
Nothing changing your mind at this moment.
Not yet.
Well, look, coming to you next, Scott. Leading on from what Canner says, you made a very good point in the last slide about what excites you around Jonathan David, and I think the heat map really backs that up. So, what excites you about his heat map, and is there anything across maybe the other four there that might change your mind? Anything else that excites you for maybe some of those other players?
Look, I don't think any of these guys would be a bad signing. I think they'd all be brilliant additions to the squad. So let's put that out there first. My preference would still be David. I mean, you look at that heat map, it shows that he's willing to drop right back if he has to. And that's what Arteta wants. Arteta wants to play, from my observations anyway, he wants to play a pressing game. He wants to play a game where your front man drops deep and brings others into play. We've got brilliant attacking players like Saka, Martinelli, Emil Smith-Rowe, and we need a striker who's going to bring out the best in them as well. So I think his heat map backs that up. But Vlahović as well, I would be stoked to sign. And his heat map to me, again, shows just what I want to see. We want a striker who's going to work in this system. We are now at the point where the fan base understands that an Aubameyang mold striker is not going to work, not in our system. So we need someone like this, someone physical, someone who will bring others into play, and someone who's willing to fight across the pitch. I just worry that Calvert-Lewin, I know he hasn't played a lot of games, but that heat map concerns me a little bit. He is more someone you plan at the top, you plan him there, and you put the crosses on his forehead, and he'll finish them. But I feel like we've moved a little bit past that lobbing crosses into the box. We were doing that early on in the season, and it was fruitless. But now we seem to be playing a little bit different, where we're not as over-reliant on high crosses. But look, David, Vlahovic, Jonathan, Isak, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. I like what their heat map show. I like those three.
Yeah. No, they're all great options, as you say, and they all offer different qualities. So it'll be really, really interesting to see who we eventually end up with. And finally, coming to yourself, Neil. What do you make of the information on screen? Anything to change your mind as of yet?
I mean, it's there to see, man. You could see it. It's in there, right in red. You could see it right there in red. It's right there in front of all of us. He's clearly a workhorse, and that's something that Mikel Arteta appreciates a lot in a player, and he wants that type of player in the team because it suits the system. I would want to say though, just looking at those videos with Isak,
Right.
the way he takes on players and he uses the channels, the way that he gets his shot off so quickly, I really think he can be a really valuable asset to the team. I mean, we're looking at a player in the middle there that's possibly on his way to a very like a monumental team such as like a Bayern Munich or Barca or Real Madrid. Those are the type of teams that are probably or have been monitoring him. So, would we be able to sign him? That's the real question. That's what I think it's gonna boil down to. And if we can't sign him, who is going to be that supplemental player? And that supplemental player, I feel, is going to be Isak. And I'm gonna hover on that pretty while. Like I can't see us, beating any other team for a player such as I can't even pronounce his name. Vlahovic. Vlahovic, yeah. Yeah, it's just to me, I'm just being just trying to be a little bit realistic with what we're looking at here.
Absolutely. Well, look, not necessarily a question coming in from Keith, but he makes a point here. I did bring it up on screen just a moment ago. I just want to grab everyone's thoughts on this just very, very quickly. This could be the case for any one of these strikers given their age, I suppose. None of them have any kind of real loyalties to Arsenal in the sense they've come through the academy. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin might be an Arsenal fan if rumours are to be believed. But apart from him, this could potentially happen, with any striker, anyone that comes to the Premier League and shows that they've got the pedigree to score 20, 25, 30 plus goals in a season in the Premier League. You're going to have the big boys sniffing around them if Arsenal don't progress. So, Neil, just very, very quickly, do you see that as being an issue?
I think so. And it's just something that we have to try to be able to manage, One quick thing I would like to question though, have you been monitoring Ollie Watkins?
He's coming in the next show. I've got 5 more strikers lined up next week for that one.
I feel like he as well is probably a better option than DCL if we had to. But yeah, it's just a matter of managing that and how we could manage that should bigger teams come in if he does sign for us. Because he has maybe his posters is in his childhood bedroom is filled with Vieira and Bergkamps and Thierry Henry's, Yeah. So those pictures are gonna just pop up all of a sudden. So yeah,
we'll hopefully wait and see. What are your thoughts on this, Scott? Would you take Vlahović for 2 seasons, 30 plus goals, or would you prefer signing someone for maybe 4 or 5 years?
If someone's going to come in for 1 or 2 seasons but take us to the next level, come. This is modern day football. Unfortunately, when you look at our club as a whole, of course we're still one of those big clubs, but we've been out of the Champions League for a very long time.
Yes.
We've been out of title races for a very long time. So I don't think we're in a position where we can say, no, Vlahović, we don't want you because you'll only stay for 2 seasons. If he's going to come for 2 seasons, bang in 30 goals and propel us into the Champions League, help win us a domestic cup or challenge for a title, bring it on. I mean, my only fear is that we're dreadful when it comes to selling players. We tend to be allergic to selling a player without just sending them on a stupid loan first. So I would hope that if we bring someone like that in and he does want to use us as a stepping stone, use us as a stepping stone, but we better profit when we sell you.
Yes.
And it better not be a loan with an obligation to buy after 15 installments. Like, if you're going to have us used, at least let's make it beneficial for us financially and on the pitch.
Absolutely. And given his age as well, at just 21, you'd like to think there's some good resale value there as well, like there would be with most of these boys. What's your 50p's worth on this one, Canners?
I think listen, Arsenal's a huge club. We're world renowned. The thing is, that is the thing that we're missing. If Vlahovic was or could get us into Champions League and challenging for titles, why? We've had this discussion already. How many years with Thierry Henry, Vieira, all our big players being wanted by the Real Madrids and Barcelonas and stuff. And I think the if we can show the player that we're challenging, I don't see why we would need to sell him. If we can show that we can be successful here, then why not? One thing I would say with Vlahovic, what he'll probably have if he was to join this winter, is maybe an option like a minimum fee. If we don't get into Europe, by the end of next season or something like that, I'd understand that. I would get that. And I think it will be a challenge to us as a club, and it would be a challenge to him also if we was to purchase him. Or maybe the minimum fee would be something in the region of 80 or 90 million, whatever, if we don't get Champions League football. Because I tell you what, if he does produce and we do get into Champions League, right, and we've got enough years on his contract, he ain't going for less than 100 million.
No.
Do you know what I'm saying? So if we get him for 50 million plus Torreira, or I don't know, 60 million plus Torreira, whatever it is, we're going to make a huge profit in it, regardless if we don't get into Europe. But I think he's the missing piece. Well, probably one of the missing pieces of the jigsaw for us to push us onto that next level.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I think striker's the only position I think now where we don't have a player that's been bought by Arteta. So that Arteta style / mould type of player. And Silver Fox makes a great point here. If we did sign him and in 2 years' time we're challenging for titles and we're consecutively every season in the Champions League, which is what he wants now, why would he want to leave at that point? So, we may give him a reason to stay. Schneider Mike here with a comment with regards to Ollie Watkins, who we will be covering. We will be covering in a future show. There was another comment coming in here from F4 Freestylers with regards to Jack Wilshere, who we will be covering in the midfielder show next week. And then finally a comment coming in here from Judge. All very, very good points. So, up next, we've got some very basic stats. I'm going to be nice to you guys to begin with. Nice and easy, okay? I don't want anyone to get overwhelmed by the information on screen because we're going to go through it. I'm going to explain how it all works. And then the panel are going to back me up and save me with their explanations to some of this information. So on screen right now, we have got their current stats for the current league campaigns. In white, they're the average numbers. In black, they're the lowest numbers. And then in green are highest numbers in each of the respected categories. So Vlahović, very, very consistent. 19 games, 19 starts, 16 goals, the most minutes, even chucked in a couple of assists along the way. Mention of Scots, another guy there was Jonathan David, 19 starts, 15 goals, so really, really, really impressive stuff. Apart from that, none of the others really, really kind of blow me away at this point. So coming to you first, Neil, what excites you? What disappoints you? Pros and cons, talk me through it.
This guy is he's not human. He's not human. But let me throw a cool. I wouldn't say a curveball because that's a baseball reference. Seeing that we're all cricketing nations, I'll throw a little bouncer here, a little Yorker. Looking at the Serie A, the average goals conceded is like about 20 plus for each team. only Inter and Napoli 15 goals conceded and 14 goals conceded. So while he has such great stats in terms of goals scored, it could also mean that the actual league defensively on a whole is quite poor. So I mean, for him to come to the Premier League and put up numbers like that, that's the one thing about coming to the Prem, and this has happened to many players. Falcao and like these type of players who've been like monsters in their previous leagues. So while this is all well and fine, and I love it, if this is something that he could come and put on in the Premier League, that would be so good. Um, but time will tell. Time will tell. Other than that, what stands out for me is that he's probably not human.
We're only halfway through the season, so if that's anything to go by, he's going to have a 30-plus goal season in the Serie A, and Jonathan David won't be too far behind him either in Ligue 1. I think he's the leading goal scorer in the French league as well, which includes Mbappe, Neymar, Messi. They're okay players. Whilst we're on the subject, coming to you, Scott, what are your thoughts on Vlahovic? He obviously leads the way, then Jonathan David, and the other three that seem to be at the back of the queue at the moment.
I'm shocked by how low the assist numbers are for all of the players. I mean, we've done a lot of talking about how these guys are people that can drop in and bring others into play, but the assists aren't entirely there. But look, you don't sign a striker for assists, do you? That's what we've got Odegaard and Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe for. I did a little bit of maths while Neil was talking. Thankfully, he talked long enough to give me time to calculate.
You're welcome.
Thanks, man. You helped a brother out. Even with Calvert-Lewin's stats there, I kind of did the maths that even if he played 20 matches at that same form, he'd still only be on 15 goals. And that's assuming that he maintained 3 goals every 4 starts. In saying that, the Premier League to me is by far the best league in the world, the most competitive. Serie A, there are a lot of goals being conceded. Defence seems to have gone out the window there. But you have to look at the stats there, and it's clear. It's clear for Vlahovic who's standing out. But again, as I said earlier, Jonathan David, to me, not a bad option. He's banging in the goals over there in France, and he's leading some very good competition, as you said. So, look, I don't think any of these guys are a bad signing, but I would lean more towards the last 3.
Yes. Well, funnily enough, those 3 that you've just highlighted there seem to be the 3 that are being most linked to Arsenal on a daily basis. The Athletic, who are fairly decent source, are quite confident that it's one of those 3 that Arsenal will sign, whether it's in January or the summer. One thing we do have with Lille is a very good relationship, having bought the likes of Gabriel and Pepe in the past. Hopefully they don't pull the wool over our eyes like they did with Pepe with Jonathan David in terms of the way they've structured that deal and the cost behind it. Canis, you're probably eating this information up right now, aren't you? With this Vlahovic stuff.
I'm loving this. I mean, you're I should just shut up. Listen, this guy. We can talk about the Serie A really being probably the weakest league out of the 3. We're talking French and Spanish league. I'm not sure if you guys saw a brief Fiorentina kind of. Torreira, he had a little interview, and he was talking about obviously the 3 leagues that he's played in, Premiership, La Liga, and Serie A, and he said straight off, Premiership's the best league. It's the hardest league to play in, and then La Liga, and then Serie A. So, although you might say, and you could say that the numbers are skewed with Vlahovic, but as you said at the top of the show, you had Ronaldo scoring X amount of goals in the Canadian year, and this guy's just beating it. So if Ronaldo's still, if he's beating Ronaldo's numbers, there's still something there, that with this guy that could be that could translate and work in the Premiership. I'm starting to like this Jonathan David. I know Silver. I just saw the comment from Silver Fox, because he does tick a lot of boxes with his work rate and how he is, looking at the heat map, and he is chipping in with goals as well in quite a strong lead, and with the players or the forwards like Mbappe, Messi, Neymar. That's just in one team. I mean, there's a lot of other teams, but for me, it would probably be out of those two. I think that will probably suit our system the best. Still Vlahović ahead for me though.
Yeah, well, even if he did have a 30+ goal season, nowadays top goal scorers in the Premier League score between sort of 20-25 goals. So that's his output. Just because he does that 30+ goal season in Serie A doesn't mean he has to do that in the Premier League. Many players. I think was a few years back. Joint top goal scorers were Aubameyang, Mane, and Salah, all with 22 each. Yeah. So you don't have to sign a striker for them to score 30 goals. As long as they're scoring 20+ goals for you, that's what Arsenal need. We need a 20+ goal a season goal scorer each and every season. So we're going to dive into the next slide. I don't want anyone to be put off by this because this is some really hardcore information now on screen. It might be a little bit overwhelming. Let me explain it and then we'll dive into it. You guys can digest it whilst I explain it to everyone watching at the moment. So this is the averages over 90 minutes. So to give you an example, En-Nesyri has an average of 2.7 shots per game, and 42% of those shots are successful in the sense of either being on target or resulting in a goal. Now, just like in the last slide, the numbers highlighted in black are the ones at the bottom of the pile, as in the worst of the 5. Green, top of the pile, and then the white ones are the averages along the middle. And this is where things start to change, because Vlahović has been sort of number one for pretty much the whole way up until now, and Jonathan David behind. And we're starting to see some nice numbers there from Dominic Calvert-Lewin, although they might be skewed a little bit because he's only played 4 games. En-Nesyri, 3 figures there at the bottom end, doesn't make for good reading, unfortunately for him. But coming to you first, Canners, what do you like from some of the information you see on screen, whether it be, dribbles, aerial duels, passing, because we are a passing team. Lacazette does link up play quite well. What stands out to you? What's a concern?
I'm looking at Isak, really. We spoke about his footwork and his dribbles straight away. You can see that there for him to be the best, and pretty much his aerial duels is pretty good, and ground duels as well. His passing is not bad. I mean, he's pretty middle of the road, but still, he's probably between Jonathan David and Vlahović for me. I don't think Calvert-Lewin's played enough games really to and the same probably with En-Nesyri as well. That they haven't played enough games to kind of really because the aerial duels that Calvert-Lewin's got there is ridiculous.
It is absolutely bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's just down to 4 games. So
yeah, if that was 15 games, that's a different number.
Yeah, exactly. Again, for me, Vlahović, still kind of kills it. But for me, I don't know. I really do like. I mean, I understand with the games lost for Vlahović is going to be high because of Fiorentina not doing great. But it's between those 3 for me. Passing for Jonathan David. Obviously, we're a passing team, and the chances created is what you want, really. From your forward as well to be involved with that. So I think it's between those 3 really. We're probably Vlahović and David are probably tops, really.
Yeah, I'd probably say you're right with the way the show has gone this evening. Those 2 are sort of neck and neck. Vlahović might have his head slightly in front, depending on who you ask, and then Isak is in 3rd place. Scott, what do you make of the information? There's a lot there. There's a lot to take in, number crunching and all that.
Matt, I was just happy you asked Canners first. Gave me an extra 5 minutes to look at.
Yeah, you killed me there, but it's cool.
Well, are you sure you don't want to go to Neil next, do you? No, in all seriousness, looking at the numbers, it's again just supporting that narrative that we've clearly had during this show, that Vlahović and David are standing out. I know there's a really strong case for DCL as well, and I'd just love to see these stats over a longer period of time for him, because as Mike said in the chat, his air numbers are fantastic. And if we were that kind of team that was doing what we did early on and lobbing crosses into the air blindly almost at times, then you would have to say that he's perfect for us. But the way we're playing right now, I just want to see consistency. I just want to see that continue. And I'm really impressed with Jonathan David's stats here. The chances created, him and Vlahović again standing out. That passing, as Ken has said, in Arteta's system, even your keeper needs to be an excellent passer. Yeah. So he would no doubt expect the same from a striker. And I think those passing stats of the last three are brilliant. In saying that, for Calvert-Lewin, I can understand his passing stat being a little bit lower, because he is so heavily man-marked in this league. And he's not playing against chumps. He's playing against, some serious world-class defenders. So credit to him for having good stats, despite it being 3 games, because it is hardest to do it in the Premier League. So
it is. It is. And you mentioned about looking at Dominic Calvert-Lewin in a bit more detail over a longer period, and you'll get your wish in the very last slide, but I won't give away what that is just yet. But you make some good points. Both of you have made some really, really good points so far. I'm sure Neil's going to sort of continue on with that. But just very, very quickly, with regards to the ground duels for the 3 players that we've sort of predominantly focused on as the show's gone on, I like the ground duel success rate for these guys and how many they're getting involved in. And the reason I like that is because of the high press.
Yeah.
We need to have players that not only stay in the right shape, but they're also able to win the ball. And we've had a lot of success recently in doing that. So that's really, really important. And Can, as you mentioned a moment ago, the dribbles of Isak for a player his height. I think you mentioned it right back at the very beginning of the show. Yeah. For a player of his height to be that good with his feet, he's attempting twice as much as everyone else, and pretty much the most successful as well. So, Neil, what do you make of the information? Because Dominic Calvert-Lewin was one of our favourites at the start of the show, and he's fallen behind now. And there's a few others sort of leading the pack at the moment.
So there's one little caveat I'm gonna talk about with Calvert-Lewin, but I'll leave that for last. I love the passing stats for the last 3. I love the dribble stats for the last 3. Isak, as I said in his videos, he's taking on players, and there's a number right there, 3.9. It's 47% of those dribbles are successful, which is quite decent. I don't know. I feel like, maybe David would be very, very much fitted for an Arteta's team, because we are a passing team. We are a pressing team now as of late. And a lot of success has come out of that. And that's it for those 3. I feel like, that's something that's really stand out. The one thing I want to say about Calvert-Lewin is that one thing we have seen in our game previously is that if our initial plan isn't going well, we tend to get a little bit lackluster and drop concentration, and that's because the passing side of the game is probably blocked in some form or fashion, and that's where I believe a target man such as Calvert-Lewin could be very beneficial, very, very beneficial. And if not him, someone like him, because I can't see him coming to just sit on the bench in the event that we need him at some point in the game. He's probably a player that wants to start. So that's the one thing I want to say about him, or a player like him. I think that's something that we may want to focus on at some point. I mean, yes, we have consistency and we would like to see that consistency continue with the team, but we will have some bumps in the road. And I feel like with those bumps in the road, we should also be prepared with players of his profile.
Absolutely. And hopefully, the very last slide will give him a little bit of credit. There was a good comment actually made. I can't find it now. It was a while back. It was along the lines of, we have to value that Premier League experience a lot higher than we're giving credit as well. Because at the end of the day, someone like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, you'd like to think there'd be a much smaller adjustment period compared potentially. Not always. Sometimes players come into the Premier League and they just hit the ground running and they set the league alight. But we can't predict the future, unfortunately. It'd make this a lot easier, wouldn't it, on who we should or shouldn't buy. Okie dokie. So moving into the very next slide, Football Manager-esque, if you will, with some of these diamond graphs here. I haven't got them from Football Manager. Don't worry. I've got them from elsewhere. Underneath, we've got in green some strengths and in red some weaknesses. Take them with a pinch of salt, that particular section. I've got them from Who Scored Me and SofaScore. Information has been collated over the last 2 years' worth of performances for all information that you can see on screen. The reason I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention is mainly down to, I think it's Vlahović. He is obviously, as all of them are, the best with regards to his attacking abilities, but also very, very technical, which was something that surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. One thing that doesn't surprise me, though, is Isak's technical ability, up there at 63 out of 100. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, very, very good tactically. So, I'm going to give you guys a few more seconds to sort of digest this information. Neil, I'm going to come to you this time first. Canis is going to get the most time to work out what he's going to say.
Going to need it.
Same sort of question as we have in some of the previous slides, really. You can look at this information. There'll be glaring concerns with some players. There'll be others that are big, big pros. And you'll see, why maybe Arteta might be sort of targeting some of these players. But anything there that is a big plus, anything there that is a concern in terms of we've already got that, or that's already a problem within the Arsenal squad?
And this is no disrespect to En-Nesyri, but I'm not going to really comment on him. But starting with Calvert-Lewin, with regards to hold-up play, I think we have that in Lacazette. We don't have the aerial duels. That's something I just stressed on just a few seconds ago. I'm kind of shocked at the ball control and the passing for him. I'm really surprised at that. I think those are basic things to have once you're a player in the Prem. Like, you're in the Premier League, you need your ball control and your passing needs to be on point at all times, and that goes across the board for those last four. Same thing for Vlahović. Anchor play, we have that in Lacazette. Plus is that he does have a aerial duel in him, so that's a good thing to probably have. And David, natural finisher and pace.
Pinch of salt, remember?
Pinch of salt, yeah, I'll take it as that. And Isak, the dribbling, I saw it for myself.
Yes.
You guys check him out on Scout Nation. Check out Scout Nation on YouTube, bro. They're really good with that. Yeah, he's ridiculous with the dribbling. The free kicks as well has been pretty sick, pretty insane. So yeah, that's my I tried to hold up for you guys. I hope my hold up for Canas. And
so when they start holding banners like that, 2 more minutes. Scott, you're next. I hope you're ready. Same question to you as put to Neil. Any concerns, any pros, anything at all that excites you?
Of course, the ball control and passing, when you look at Vlahović and DCL, that's concerning with the way we play. However, as you said, pinch of salt. I mean, we've all... to me, sometimes the best statistic is the eye test. It's what you see when you watch a player. And I've watched enough of Calvert-Lewin to know that I don't have great concerns over his ball control.
Yeah.
Look, he's certainly no Mesut Ozil when it comes to passing a ball, but he's the striker. His job is not to be playing slick through balls. It's to put the ball in the back of the net. So I take the ball control and passing, red flags with a pinch of salt. The green is what interests me more. That hold up play. We know DCL is good for that. We know he's done that in the Premier League. So
Yes.
I think he'd slot in quite easily to Arsenal. Vlahovic, again, similar kind of mould to Lacazette, except significantly better in the air. And I would think he would slot in quite well. Jonathan David, I think that pace, he is quite quick, isn't he? You add that in with a Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, Martinelli, I could see us really rattling some teams. And that would be an exciting attack to watch. Just try and picture all those guys together. Mm-hmm. How exciting, how quick, how lethal could that be? But again, I've said this pretty much with every set of stats you'd put up. I don't think there's a bad signing here.
No.
Yeah, I would lean more towards, Vlahovic, David, DCL for me. I'm come a little bit off Isak during this stream. It's brought me a little bit away and more towards the others. Neil's persuaded me a little bit.
Well, we've got one more slide after this, and then I will ask you guys the same question I asked at the very start of the show, just to see if you have changed your answers. Canners, you've had the most time out of everyone, so
I'm gonna have a look at. Okay. Obviously, I know what anchor is for a midfield player. For a striker, anchor play. What does that actually mean?
So, to be fair, from what I've read, it's more of that type of role that Lacazette plays at the moment for Arsenal. So when he drops in deep and allows, well, essentially our two wingers to come in as forwards, I suppose, and link up midfield as maybe like a secondary cam alongside Odegaard.
Sure. Okay, gotcha. Listen, I think he could do that well. One thing I just see there as well, aerial duels for Isak, a red flag. That's for someone so tall. He's probably the tallest out of the five of them. To be so poor in the air, is not a good thing. So yeah, I'm leaning towards still Vlahovic for me is number one, and then David. I mean, the only thing that does concern me though with Dominic Calvert-Lewin and maybe the heat map kind of alludes to this as well is how good he is with his feet. I feel that Arteta wants players that are comfortable on the ball, at their feet. Everybody, if you look at all the players from the centre backs, the full backs, everyone is comfortable with their, with the ball at their feet, and I think he'd want his attackers to be no different, and that's probably one of the things that would concern me about Calvert-Lewin. I'm not really been too wide with the ball at his feet. Vlahovic, I've watched him. His ball control. Is it bad? I mean, he might make up with it he can bulldoze his way through kind of, a few players and things like that. But I'd certainly still going towards Vlahovic in this one. Probably David is coming in second for me, where it was Isak second, but Jonathan David now is second for me, to be fair.
Yeah, I think that's why the Athletic are quite clear on why those three, the last three, are the favourites at the moment, because as you said, they are all very, very comfortable with the ball at their feet. Jonathan David being able to play with both feet naturally and come deep and play well. Some big pluses there. So, okie dokie, right, very, very last slide. And this is the last piece of information that we'll be reviewing today before I ask you that same question at the very beginning of the show. So just to explain what we have on screen, this is 12 months worth of data, and it is compared against every striker across all 5 top leagues and European competitions. So quite a few players, and this is how they compare to those players. The higher the percentage, the better. So you're in for example, En-Nesyri is in the top 92% for goals scored across the top 5 leagues and European competitions. Vlahović, again, right in there at 95%. Jonathan David at 89%. So some really good numbers. Same with assists. And then third one down is expected goals. Then we've got pass completion, shot creation, dribble completion, and aerial duels won, whether that's defensively or offensively. So, everyone understand?
Yep.
Brilliant. Scott, I'm going to come to you first this time. I don't think I've come to you first for a few slides. So, you're up first. Anything there, again, that really excites you? Anything that you're quite happy about? Anything that might sway your decision? Or any concerns with the players that you've picked?
Two most important things are goals and assists. And you see that with Vlahović. It's pretty clear. I'm not overly concerned about the low XG for David. I mean, it depends as well on the players around you and the system.
Yes.
To your XG. So I'm not overly concerned about that. It is quite low. I haven't watched enough of him to understand why that's so low, but there's enough positive there that shows me that I don't need to worry about it too much. I think, again, this just supports the narrative of those two guys that we've talked a lot about. But Isak's look quite good too. So There's no black in his. There's nothing that he's the lowest for, so that's a good thing for him as well.
It's very good. Good sort of solid average numbers across the board. One thing that I take from this is that Vlahović is definitely contributing more in an attacking sense, whereas when we look at pass completion and shot creation, whether that be shots that you've created through passes or dribbles for yourself or others, Jonathan David sits at the top of the pile, which is very important when you compare him to someone like Lacazette and the role he's playing in this current Arsenal side. So again, it seems like those two are quite easily leading the race. Coming to you, Neil, on this, what are your thoughts?
I can't believe this guy, man. This 12 months of data, 94 goals, 46 assists. It's just insane, you know. En-Nesyri, though, he surprised me. He came up 92 goals, 10 assists. That's not bad. I don't know, man. I think Jonathan David has moved to my top. I would go, if I could go for a striker right now, I'll go for Jonathan David. That's based off of the data that you've shown through the slides. You sold me, Jake. You sold me. You did very well.
I need to become a football agent, I think, don't I? I'm in the wrong job.
I want to see a tactical show with Gums and Jake Connors. Oh, that would be super.
That would be something, definitely.
Well, look, one thing I do want to touch on very quickly is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. A lot of the data that we've analysed up until this point has been based on, I think 4 Premier League games. So not really too much to go on. Yeah. However, this is data now based on the last 12 months. So all the way back until January last year. And don't get me wrong, there are still some good numbers in there. Yes, it's a tougher league, but you'd still maybe want them to be a little bit higher. Maybe in the region of, an En-Nesyri or an Isak, maybe closer to those type of numbers, but they're just not quite there, which doesn't convince me too much. Canners, what are your thoughts on some of the numbers that you can see on screen at the minute?
Yeah, that one's is stark, really. 45 goals. That's almost just over half the other 4. Isak on 84, and that's not great. Vlahović for me again, he's just smashing it. 95 goals, 46 assists. No one comes near him with assists as well. So he's not only is he he's scoring, he's assisting, he's contributing. And that's exactly what, someone who can do everything. And that's what we've missed. Look, I'm not saying he's going to be anywhere near like Thierry Henry, where he was scoring and assisting. But you got those kind of numbers in goal involvements. That's ridiculous. And the thing is, the aerials one, every other number for me, you can't really be disappointed with. You know, the XG, the pass completions, or whatever, probably not the best. The shot creations, dribble completions, and aerials one. For me, you know, those last three stats, the shot creation, the dribble completion, and the aerials one, is good enough for me. You know, in terms of contribution and what he's doing. But obviously, this is the top two, what you want from a striker. And he's producing, really. No one else really comes near him. I mean, if you're talking about total goal involvements, he blows everyone else out of the water.
Absolute beast. Absolute beast. I think we're probably all in agreement. And I'll ask you all just in case anyway. But it does seem as though that Vlahović and Jonathan David are probably the top two excuse me, options from today's show. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove this from screen so you can see our faces a little closer. Lovely evening faces. Evening, Gary. You come right at the end. You'll have to go back and watch now. But thank you for coming along either way. Some comments coming on here on who people would prefer. So guys, for anyone that is watching in the chat, I really, really do appreciate you coming along this evening. I'm about to ask the panel who they would go for from the 5 options that we've analysed this evening. If you do have any questions for the panel, get them in the chat now. And we are now going to move on to the question from the very, very beginning of today's show. So Neil, I think you said earlier that you wanted to go with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Was that right?
Yeah, the start of the show. Yes.
Start of the show. And you know what? This is what these shows are all about, you know, helping people learn about these players. I've learned a lot from today's show. Hopefully others have as well. Who are you going for? If you could buy one player right now, who would you go for?
I'd go for Jonathan David.
Jonathan David, nice.
Jonathan
nice.
David.
Canners?
I have the right to change my mind.
You have. I tell you what. Why have you changed your mind? What is it that's changed your mind?
He seems to be a well, based off of all the slides, he's clearly a more balanced player, and would definitely fit right into Arteta's system as opposed to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He seems to be a bit more lopsided. I mean, he's great in the air, no question, but everything else, he just doesn't seem to really check the boxes.
Yeah.
And I'll just be really honest. I would when he was, you know, putting balls in the back of the net for Everton, I loved him, but he just seemed to just fall off radar.
No, they're all fair. They're all fair comments. All fair comments. Coming to you next, Canners. Have you changed your mind, or has this information made you want him even more?
Yeah, even more. The one thing I have changed though is my second choice is Jonathan David instead of Isak. That is my that I have changed with that. But yeah, Vlahović is still, if we can get him. For me, that would be a huge statement of intent.
Yes, it would be, and that's what we need to do. We need to make another statement. We've got 26 days from today to try and make that happen.
Yeah.
Make it happen. So, and last but no means least, Scott, are you still Jonathan David? Have you changed your mind?
I've changed my mind.
Oh, okay.
Canners has got me. He's got me over to. I mean, looking at the stats, the stats are there. That Vlahović is just an established goal scorer. I mean, when I say established with a pinch of salt, because obviously you want to tap him for a few more seasons, but you don't fluke the amount of goals he's scored. In saying that, I would probably have him and Jonathan David level for me. I feel Jonathan David would be with us for the long term, but he'd need a little bit more work than Vlahović would. I think Vlahović would be more seamless, but with David, we'd need to tweak the system, and we'd need to really work with him to bring him up to speed. But again, as I've said multiple times, bring me any of those guys, I'm not going to be upset. I'm going to be really happy with any of them.
You're absolutely spot on there. They're all very, very good options.
Sorry, Jay. I did see one.
Was it this one?
Yes, that's what. Listen, the penalties that we've been taking this year, I don't care. Listen, if we get penalties, I want someone. I know I'm gonna have to wash my mouth out with soap here, but when Harry Kane has a penalty, you know it's a goal.
Yeah.
I would love Vlahović if he takes penalties and he scores them every single time. I'll have that. I don't care. Do you know what I'm saying? Because the amount of penalties we've had this year and we've missed, and I'm never confident that either Lacazette or Aubameyang is going to dispatch the penalty. Yeah, that doesn't. I don't care. Alan Shearer lift off penalties, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did. A number of players have done it in the past, and still classed as prolific goal scorers. And you know, we've got to have. I wouldn't say Aubameyang and Lacazette, like you said, are confident. I'm not. You know, I'm sat there hiding behind my sofa when we get a penalty at the moment. I'm not as confident as, like you said. Okie dokie. So, just checking to see if there are any other questions in the chat. Tom, yes, I will be down at the Arsenal, hopefully on February 19th to watch Brentford with Keith, who couldn't make it this evening. And hopefully I'll get to meet a couple of other people whilst I'm down there. But I think that's... Are you going as well, are you?
I'll be there.
We'll have to make the link up happening in person.
Hey, Jake, are you still Jonathan David? Is he still your top man?
Yeah, Jake.
We've got to put you in the hot seat.
It's I know you've caught me off guard now. It's a difficult one because I think in terms of keeping the system the way it is at the moment, I think Jonathan David is more suited to our current system in terms of dropping deep, playing with both feet, good with his link-up play, that kind of thing. I'm not saying that Vlahović isn't good at that, but I think he's more of a natural goal scorer. But he's young. He's young, so he could quite easily adapt. And Arteta wouldn't be looking at him if he didn't think he could. Mm-hmm. So I think on that basis, I'm probably going to go Vlahović as well, just because of the sheer goal scoring prowess and the fact that he's so young and could potentially adapt. I don't see any reason why not. So
quick question for the whole panel: if we, as Arsenal, go and we sign Vlahović, what type of statement is that? Is the club making? Is the owners of the club making? Arteta making? Edu making? Vinay making? What type of statement is everyone at the top there making?
I would say for me, that would be on par with the same feeling. I'm not saying he would become as good as, but the statement would be on par with Dennis Bergkamp, us signing Dennis Bergkamp, with the position of the club when it was how it was then. Mm-hmm. To get someone like Dennis Bergkamp in was a huge statement of intent for, on Arsenal and where we wanted to go. Yeah. And I think, I'm trying to think of another player who we signed. I don't know, not even Sol Campbell or would tops Bergkamp at the time where the club was. Mm-hmm. And the statement of intent, and I think it'll be on par with that because of
signing Aubameyang when we didn't have Champions League football, and when we signed Aubameyang, he was, I think, top goal scorer in the top 5 leagues. That was a big statement. But to me, if we can pull this off, we're pretty much saying that we're here and we mean business. Other teams are starting to talk about us a lot more. There's a lot more anti-Arsenal chatter and agenda out there in the Twitterverse. I saw Manchester United fans cheering for Man City against us. So they're starting to take note. There's a little bit of fear is starting to come out. So we sign someone like this, it's really going to roll up our rivals. And you know what? We're edging closer. I'm not saying we'll make the top 4. I'm not saying that right now. I'm not stupid. I wouldn't make that call at this point. But you sign someone like that, you make a statement that that's our expectation. That's where we're pushing. So,
I mean, and the player's ceiling. At being 21, you just don't know how good he can get.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No, I have to agree with what everyone said. Actually, I think Arteta might be a little bit surprised to find himself where he is in 4th place. I think a lot of Arsenal fans would have taken maybe 5th this season, or even 6th for that matter. Just getting back into Europe was the bare minimum. But like you said, Canners and Scott, the fact that we are where we are now, if we sign a player like Vlahović, we make a statement, we make a push, we surprise people, we get top 4, and we start moving in that direction that we all want. We all want. And if we can get it earlier than we expected it, then what more? What more do you want? What more do you want? Right, guys. Well, I think that is going to about wrap things up for this evening. I do appreciate everyone coming along to watch the show. Drop a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. But before we do shoot off, Neil, thank you very much for coming along. Where can everyone find you, my friend?
You can find me on YouTube as Cannon FC. You can find me on Twitter as Cannon FC, Instagram Neil the Realtor, and Neil Dwarka the Realtor, as well as Facebook.
Brilliant. And Canners, thank you very much for coming on and making your debut. Where can everyone find you, my friend?
I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Jake. Yeah, as you can see, probably from the back there, if I duck the Army TV, Army TV on a YouTube channel, and also on Twitter, as you can see there, at Cannons2204. Yeah, so no, thank you so much. Loved it, and meeting you guys as well. So we'll have to do some more stuff together.
Absolutely, you're more than welcome to come on again. And then last but not least, we've got Scott. Thank you very much for joining us so early in the morning. Where can everyone find you, my friend?
Absolute pleasure, guys. Top panel as well. Big ups to all of you. I co-host an Australian Premier League podcast called It's a Football Thing. I do that with a Chelsea and a United fan. So we always have some good laughs and banter. We do shows every Tuesday and Thursday. It's usually about 9:30 in the morning UK time. So I know our links in the description. We're getting really close to 500 subs, so if anyone wanted to jump over and help us on the way, not a huge number when you look at some other people out there, but big milestone for us. So we're grinding.
Great stuff.
The grind is real, and as Scott said, everyone's details are down in the description below. Twitter pages, YouTube pages. So go and subscribe to their channels. Don't even think about it. Just go and do it, and I really appreciate everyone, panelists, people in the chat, absolutely everyone that has joined us this evening. And until, I think the next show will be on Friday, another transfer show, as Arsenal are not playing now because of Liverpool, unfortunately. I'm sure we've all probably got a lot to say on that, but I don't want to keep everyone too long this evening. But for now, that is about going to wrap things up. So thank you very much, and we'll catch you all on Friday.